Greetings and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team video. Today I'm going to talk about the October Warhammer World Kill Team Tournament. That just happened technically yesterday at the time of recording, which was a Sunday. I'll be going over my kill team choices for the event, what my plan was, and then I'll do an event review covering what happened as well as all the, terrain, rules, all of that. And yeah, just their loadouts and how the event was overall, and then summarizing it for you all. So it's going to be a bit of a tactica as well as, previously like just another, summary of the event, just to give you an idea of how Warhammer World does their tournaments. But before we get into things, please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment, and just about what you think of the video and the subject matter in hand. And if you're interested, I will be doing an article version of this with all the images as well, which you can check down in the episode description below. Now, before we get into the event as a whole, I feel I kind of have to talk about this subject. So, we're still in a global pandemic, and in the UK, cases have been going up. So one thing I really liked from Warhammer World is that on the Thursday before the event, Steve Wren, the head of their events team, sent an email to everyone basically saying, what their standard precautions are, and everyone, if everyone could do a test to make sure they were negative beforehand, and then, standard precaution, and showing that they were going to have really spaced out areas and hand sanitizers and all that kind of stuff, just to promote a safe environment for everyone and to make sure everyone was safe themselves. And they said, if you're sick, don't worry, just let them know and they'll be able to sort things out. So we were really impressed by that, because especially me, because I'm a nurse, but I always do stuff like before big events, I will always test myself to make sure I am negative. I've also technically been vaccinated 3 times now, so I am super protected. But I think that's really cool. It's really impressive. They didn't have to do that, and I just wanted to show you guys myself that I took it very seriously as well. And when I'm at an event, no matter what, I always just wear my mask just to protect people as well as myself. So just extra points to Games Workshop for that, because they didn't need to. Technically, there's no legislation forcing them to tell people to basically be safe and that what they're going to do. But it's really nice that they did, just to show that they're taking things still very seriously. And yeah, just extra points to the events team and Games Workshop. With that important caveat out of the way, I'll go into my kill team selection. So as you know, I've been playing Tyranids for a while. I was actually planning on taking them to this event, but I did not. And the reason was, I'd been playing Tyranids for about, I think the game's about 2 months old, so about six weeks been playing Tyranids, which is a long time, taking them to 2 tournaments, some gaming nights, doing a lot of practice with them. But they have flaws, big flaws. They are a very good kill team. I'm not saying they're bad, but the problem I find is 10 Gene Stealers are amazing, and they completely shut down shooting because they ignore vantage and stuff like that. So the only way your opponent can actually shoot you is if you've poorly positioned yourself, or if they come within 1 white of you. And against good players, they will know how to punish that and adapt. But against people who aren't prepared, you will win. But the other big problem, they really struggle scoring their tac ops, because especially at Warhammer World events, it goes wins, then number of tac ops scored, then total victory points as terms of tiebreakers. So scoring all your tac ops is hugely important. And the problem I was finding when I was running double Gene Stealers, I was wiping out my opponent, killing them, but I wasn't scoring my tac ops because I was either taking Seek and Destroy, which is actually difficult to max out, or Infiltration, which is also really difficult to max out even with the Gene Stealer mobility. Now when you have 10 Gene Stealers, the problem is no shooting is rough, and even though you can buy acid mores for them, the problem is you're not really doing trades. So in terms of, you will charge someone with the Gene Stealer and generally kill them, but the problem is you take 4 to 5 damage in return. So you kill someone, then someone shoots you and they take no damage. So then you charge them again, and then the process repeats and repeats. So you need to get that first engagement, especially against shooting teams. And if you can't, you really fall behind the back foot. Or if they find ways to get damage on you before you charge, such as via grenades. And coupled with trying to max out your tac ops, I just found it really difficult. I did experiment, so I was running a lot of 3 warriors and 5 Gene Stealers with security, or 5 Gene Stealers and Tyranid Swarm with, recon. But the other big problem I had, Gene Stealers really struggle when they're outnumbered, especially against like kill teams with 14 or more operatives, because once again, it's really hard for you to trade and you can't exactly shoot, because even if you shoot at someone, you will kill someone with your acid more against those kind of kill teams, but they'll punish you back and you're always at a negative loss. So what you have to do is like charge block, charge 2 people, kill 1, and then even then you're still taking damage. So it was just inefficient trades. I experimented with a warrior with a Barb Strangler and 5 Gene Stealers with shooting, and that was effective. But then the problem is I was spending a lot of CP to get my warrior into position. So it wasn't that it was impossible. It was just, it didn't fit what I needed. There was, against the upper echelon of kill teams, I find Tyranids struggle heavily. The biggest thing was I was really worried about, not Tyranids, I'm worried about Custodies, even after the FAQ, because the biggest problem I have with Custodies now is they always Aegis every turn. And the problem is Aegis, they just have the option to ignore all crit damage that they take for 1 CP. So if you're shooting them, it's not too bad because you can still whittle away. But with my Tyranids, I have to... I can't do any shooting. So my melee profile is 4/5. If I take warriors, it's 4/6, so it just goes to 4. And then I have to pop feed, but then I'm fishing for crits because feed will do, on a critical strike, you would do your first critical strike in melee, you do +1 damage. So what I did, played against Charles, good friend and training partner. It was like, we'll play Master of the Terminals because we knew the missions from the pack. I let them be the attacker because I play as the attacker all the time and I wanted to play as the defender for Master of the Terminals because there's basically four objectives. And the way it went was Charles got 3 points, turn 1. I was like, okay, that's fine. That's kind of expected. Turn 2, he got 3 points and he almost wiped me out because it took 5 Gene Stealers to kill 1 Custodes. And then basically the other Custodes just walked up and murdered most of my other Gene Stealers. So I was like, yeah, there's no way. I know there's going to be at least 1 to 2 Custodes at the event. And if I can't beat that matchup, there's no point hoping I don't run into it. That's not how I play. So then I switched to the Commandos. So I've technically only been playing the Commandos for a week. 8 days. 8 days as it comes to that tournament. 9 days as of recording today. Obviously, I played them when I got them to review. So I played them for about 2-3 weeks and I stopped. But what really sparked my interest in them was when I was beaten by Elliot, the game's creator, at the last Warhammer World tournament, because he really showed me how flexible they were and all the tricks they had. And the reason I switched to Commandos is because they have that flexibility. They have a lot of threat range. If I want to deal with someone who outnumbers me, all I just have to do is switch up my equipment. I can take like Dynamite, which I'll get to later, and grenades. And then even then my Sniper boy, he has the ability to basically split shots and shoot. He's got a better version of Fusillade, so he can take 4 shots at everyone bunched up within white of a target. So they have amazing ability to deal with stuff that outnumbers them, and they can just gang up on elite operatives. But the other thing is, they also have shooting, like good shooting, and you still have melee focus. And the other thing is you have 2 operatives that give you +1 APL. If I want to do it with my Tyranids, I have to take warriors, and it costs me a command point to do that. The commandos can just do that natively. And you've got supreme flexibility with that Commando Grot and even the stratagems like the redeploy stratagem they have during setup. Yeah, so they were, and they have It's Just a Scratch. So for one, it's a tactical ploy. So you're going to use it once per turning point. And you can ignore the damage from any strike or critical strike from a hit. Well, any hit. So it's effectively an extra save that your opponent can't predict. And they have so much flexibility. And you can tailor your tac ops because I would say they're 3 faction tac ops. 2 are really good. The third one is okay. But because you can tailor a bit more, it makes infiltration a little bit better. Obviously, I play picking random as does at the Warhammer World event. So you still have that chance of like drawing 2 good tac ops at once. But you're allowed to tailor infiltration a bit more to make it better because they can only do seek and destroy and infiltration. And yeah, that's why I switched to Commandos. But for my event prep as a whole, one thing I was crucially working on are... so for the pack, we had Master of the Terminals, then you have Domination and Escalating Hostilities. So we knew the missions going into advance of the event. And I was looking, like my weakest thing I identified of my playstyle from the last tournament and tournaments and games I've been playing recently is my inability to max out my tac ops reliably. So that's partly why I did that video on tac op guide, partly to actually help myself, but help everyone. And so when I played them last Saturday and on Sunday the day after with another friend, I basically played all the tac ops. I played Seek and Destroy and Infiltration with the Commandos and picked each tac op that I could over the game. So I was like, okay, so I played all of them and these are the ones that I can do reliably. And I found Infiltration was just more reliable than Seek and Destroy, because Seek and Destroy makes you too greedy, and once your opponent realizes you Seek and Destroy, it's really easy for them to play around, unless you're running into like a really squishy opponent with like 7 or 8 wounds on all their operatives. But yeah, my mindset going into this tournament was memorize the missions, plan out the missions, and score my tac ops. So for the missions, I've played Master the Terminals a lot. I'm not going to lie. I think Master the Terminals is the worst mission in Kill Team because it's too powerful to the attacker. And me and my friend, we felt they chose these missions to test their viability if there is a problem with the missions, because all the missions they've chosen, Master the Terminals, Domination, and Escalating Hostilities, they're actually really difficult to max out primaries, because Master the Terminals, you can only score a maximum of 3 victory points a turn, just from the primary, and that's available to both players. So if someone steals 1, that drops down to 2 for the other player, and so on. So if you don't get maximum 3 in 1 turn, you're not going to max that out. So it actually becomes really, it changes how you approach it, that game and that tournament. And I don't like Master the Terminals because starting with the attacker, you choose which objectives turn off based on the turning point number. So what you do is, if you're the attacker, you turn off the objective closest to your opponent. And if you're like Custodes, it kind of just auto wins that matchup, because it's very easy for you to get free primary on turning point 1, and then turning point 2, you rush them and more likely get another 3 or 2 and effectively snowball your opponent into defeat. And that's why I don't like Master the Terminals, because it's such a polarizing mission that heavily favors the attacker. So my favorite fixes for it is you can only turn off objectives during the first and second turning point for the objectives that aren't closer to the deployment zones, or adding a 5th objective. I think that would fix it up. And then the problem I have with Dominion, 5 objectives with the 9-inch deployment on, is because it's 9 inches deployment on. So it's really difficult not to have a vantage point in someone's deployment zone. I like it because it's once again really tough because you need to get board control to max out your victory points for the primary. But because of that 9-inch deep deployment zone, kind of skews things. And then Escalating Hostilities, I think that's actually really fine. It's a very interesting game, 6 inches on but wide still. Not too deep, but the thing is it slowly changes the game into a scrum for the middle, because you start off with 6 objectives, then at the start of turning point 2, you each remove 1, and then at the start of turning point 3, you each remove 1, so there's only 2 left in the middle. So you can play cautiously, but by turning point 3, you have to be really fighting for the middle. So yeah, that was my plan. Basically, memorize the missions, play them repeatedly, and then also max out my tac ops, because the key to victory is maxing out my tac ops. Obviously, you need to win, but as long as I'm super consistent with my tac ops, I have a good chance of winning the event. But, I was just going there for fun. It was a Sunday. We didn't expect it to sell out, and then we were shocked when we got there, and they sold 36 tickets out of 40 on a Sunday. So the only other thing I would say that was the only really annoying thing about the event, not annoying, but kind of disappointing, was that it was 3 rounds, but still £35. For £35 on a Sunday, I would have either liked to have four rounds or like £10 off or something, just because, it kind of feels weird. I get why it's still the same price, but that was the only downside of the event. But that's all my prep. Basically, I switched to Commandos because they gave me all the tools I needed, and I basically planned for the pack and needed to maximize my tac op scoring just in general and for the event. Oh, and to briefly talk about some Kommando Tech that I figured out. So Commandos have an equipment called Dynamite, which is 4 equipment points, which is 4 dice, hitting on freeze, 5/6, AP1, indirect, unwieldy. So it's like a grenade, but it's way more explosive. So it's going to cost 2 AP to fire. So what you generally do is you put it on the Breacha Boy, because the Breacha Boy, because of his special rule, he ignores terrain that's black or less in thickness. So he can basically run through walls. You give him +1 APL, so then he moves through, blows someone up. And as I talked with the APL modification, that's really crucial because normally your boys are 2 APL. So having that ability to move and then throw it is huge, because that makes you have a threat range of 12 inches or 2 red. And that's huge board denial, but you can take this twice. So what I actually did, this is a tech I found out from the Glass Half Dead Discord, because people pointed out to me, like, they were talking about how you can Dakka dash and dynamite. So it revolves with the Dakka Boy. So he has a special rule called Dakka dash. Now, you would think it would tie to his gun, the Dakka gun, because Dakka dash is when you perform a shoot. Well, when you perform this action, it's 1 AP, and you perform a free shoot and a free dash action in any order. So obviously, glancing over, you think it just applies to the Dakka gun, but because it says a free shoot action, it applies to any shooting profile, and you can give him a grenade, a normal stick bomb grenade, as well as the dynamite. So if you gave him +1 APL, it would cost him 2 action points to basically do Dakka dash with the dynamite, because indirect unwieldy would add +1 AP to that. So normally Dakka dash is 1, with unwieldy it would cost 2. And then if I gave the Dakka Boy extra AP, he would be able to move, dash, and then boom. So not only could I get 2 boys blowing up 2 areas of the board at once, one's moving 6 inches, or 1 red, ignoring basically all terrain unless it's a big area piece. And then I've got another boy who can effectively move 9 inches and then throw his dynamite. So that kind of threat range is insane. And then what I usually did was I just gave the Burna boy a Choppa. You know, I think the Choppa's really good, almost too good at 2 equipment points, because it's 4 attacks, hitting on 3 is 4/5, and you can put that on any guy. And yeah, that was just, because my roster was basically everything you can build from the, the Octarius box. So a Nob with Big Choppa, then I've got a Snipa Boy, Dakka Boy, Breacha Boy, Rokkit Boy, Burna Boy, Comms Boy, Slasha Boy, then 2 boys, and Bomb Squig, and the Grot. And then obviously the Grot, which I'll get to in a minute. But that was the tricks. And the other thing is, what I was doing when I was playing them for the first 2 days, so last Saturday, last Sunday, I was giving them +1 AP. I was giving the Dakka Boy and the Breacha Boy +1 APL first turn. That was my opening things to basically waste activations, because a key thing that Charles and my friend Item pointed out to me, what you want to do is waste activations to force your opponent to basically do stuff first, so then you can punish. So you want to waste their activations by doing stuff that you would do anyway, that they don't really have the ability to interrupt or interact with, such as giving someone an APL or just moving on to an objective they can't see. So the problem I found with that is, yeah, you know, you'd give them +1 APL, the opponent would stay back. Turn 1, you'd move up, but then for turn 2, you'd be in a prime position if you won priority to immediately dynamite, but you wouldn't have the AP. So I'd go, okay, +1 APL to this guy, then they have a turn to react, or 2 turns if they win priority. So the way I got around this was modifiers last until that operative activates. So I would activate the Dakka Boy or the Breacha Boy, then I would activate the Comms Boy or the Knob, who can give them +1 APL. So I would give them +1 APL after they've activated. So going into turning point 2, they would start with 3 APL. So I wouldn't have to spend an action point to give them that, because APL modifiers last until that fighter activates, operative activates, and then it finished at the end of their activation. And you can only have a maximum of +1 APL or -1. You could give a guy like 2, but they would only ever have +1. But that got around people trying to play cagey. So then round 2, I could go, oh, cool. If I win priority, I can immediately dynamite you. So it was all about that board control. And obviously I had the Dakka Boy up on, the Snipa Boy, up on a vantage point concealed somewhere where he can just shoot concealed for the whole game. And obviously I would generally pair him with the Rokkit Boy. So I effectively had 2 really good shooting guys on vantage points, 2 guys on the ground, able to dynamite people. I've got like the Slasha boy who can sneak up and charge people, as well as anyone else would conceal. And I'm generally popping Dakka, just because it makes the dynamite even more reliable, because if I roll a crit, I can turn a miss into a hit. So like, even though it's only 4 dice, you've got like a 51.3% chance to roll a crit on 4 dice. So it makes your bombs really, really effective. And it's not so much the damage they do. The damage they do is great, but it's the ability that it just, the board control. That's what I wanted, because it stopped my opponent bunching up, because what would happen, especially because I had 2, the first one would catch them by surprise, and then they would just space out, but then my commandos would just maul them. Or they would space out and stay apart, but then they wouldn't advance because they would be too afraid, and I would just control the board. And then there was the Grot Squig. I mean, the Kommando Grot. His hook shot, like, is crazy. Generally, he was my interloper. So interloper is 1 APL, 1 action point to once you're within blue of an opponent's board edge, you remove yourself, you get 2 VP. You have to nominate them at the start of the game. And then I only realized this after the tournament yesterday, but he has the same conceal rule as Gene Stealers. So as long as he's concealed, he's always concealed unless you're in his face or he's in the open, which is crazy. But his hook shot is the biggest thing, because what I used him for 1 AP, he can hook shot to another piece of terrain and just zip over to it, and he has to land within black of it and not within white of any enemy operatives. So what I used him for was scouting around the board. He would either like do mission actions to blow up stuff, or upload viral code, or he would steal objectives, or the biggest thing he usually did was deny the security tack up, where you score 1 VP at the end of the turning point if no one's in your deployment zone. So what people would do, rush out forward, and then the Grot Squig shoots in, goes into the deployment, denies that, shoots away, and then steals an objective, then turn 4 interlopes. And the thing is, I know a lot of people interlope immediately with the Grot Squig, with the Kommando Grot, but I think that's a bad move. You want to save it for as long as possible, just to fluke out to your opponent that you don't have it, even though you likely do. But that annoying Grot, they either ignore it and then it does something and they have to focus on it, or they focus on it the whole game at the point it's a detriment to them. So I was using the Grot as a crazy command piece, and also using them to waste activations by just even hook shotting to objectives in my own territory, just to waste activations again, to force my opponent to do stuff. And the other thing I liked about the commandos, with the Tyranids, I generally had to be attacking and going first every time, but with the commandos I could go second. So I could happily just go, yeah, you know what? I might even be the defender. I'll let you be the attacker. I don't care if you go first. I actually probably want you to go first, because especially if we're 10 operatives, I want to have the last activation. So that was a kind of interesting thing. And I think that was pretty much all my tech. It was the Dakka Dash Bomb, Dynamites, and I thought about ropes as well, but I didn't really need to use ropes for this tournament, because that's just another mobility piece. And yeah, it was just like multiple threat ranges that my opponent had to keep in mind, because if there's so many things they need to keep in mind with my commandos, there's nothing that you can really focus down, because there's so many threats. So, and it's just the scratch is amazing, so good. Like, I can't tell you how many times it's just the scratch has saved me. But okay, now I've got that all out of the way, we'll get on with the tournament report. So going into the event, one cool thing, obviously they registered everything on BCP, but they had on their lanyards, this time instead of your name and stuff, they had the kill team event on the flip side. They had the event times and briefings, so you knew which round was which and all the times and stuff. So that's really cool, nice and laminated, really easy to follow. That was very helpful. And as always, they were using board layouts. So they had a Vertigus board and some Octarius terrain, which you'll see on the screen now. So they had the predetermined layouts from last time, and once again, standard high quality terrain. Because yeah, you either had the Octarius boards, which had all the stuff from Octarius, or the Vertigus boards, which had similar terrain pieces, and you generally had 3 vantage points each board with lots of scatter and heavy. So it was actually a nice mix. I know some people have said the terrain is too dense, but I've still found it perfect for kill team, and it's, for me, still the gold standard. So for round 1, I was against a lovely chap called Alistair using his Grey Knights. So I was really worried about this matchup because we were going into Master of the Terminals. And the problem with Master of the Terminals is, especially against elite kill teams, it's really rough, especially when he turned out to be the attacker. But then the events team told us, oh, no, it's not Master of the Terminals, because in the books it was Master of the Terminals, escalating hostilities and domination. And they said, we never actually said the order the missions were in. We just said those were the missions that we're playing. And they were completely right. It's just those were the order that was in. So we changed the mission around because we will change the objectives around. And as you can see, I'm using my lovely buy the same token acrylics, which I'll probably cover in another video another time. But they're super clear. Love the stuff. And you might see my Art of War tokens, such as the turn counter, or the score counter. But yeah, so he was running 5 Grey Knights, all the same, swords with Stormbolters, and then he was running like Cybolt and 3 psychic actions. The leader had True Silver Armor, so you had a 2-up save. My kill team loadout was basically the same. Well, it was always my same loadout. So it's Kommando, all the specialists, 1 boy, and then a Grot Squig. Then the Kommando Grot. And then I put Dynamite on my Breacha boy and my Dakka boy. And then I put a Choppa on the Flamer. Just because I use my Burna boy quite aggressively. I know people aren't a fan of the Burna boy, but I use him like a really cool rush down. He'll rush, Burna someone. He won't kill them, but he'll heavily wound them. And then if people charge him, he'll still be a decent threat in combat. So I use him as a boy with a Flamer, basically. And Alistair was the attacker, so he made me the defender. So I picked the left-sided deployment because we were now playing domination. So there's 5 objectives, 9-inch deployment. I was able to get my sniper boy onto the vantage point, and I had my Breacha boy hidden up top behind the wall, and my Dakka boy down left. I had my Nob up the top and my Kommando comms down the bottom. So that's how I paired them. My dynamite caddies were protected by either my Nob or the comm to give them +1 APL. And that's basically how the deployment went. He made me go first. So in his strategic ops, he played, what do you call it? It's their concealment strategic ploy. So it basically means if you're on a vantage point, you don't get the benefit and advantage. So even though his guys were all concealed, I couldn't shoot with my sniper boy. We both picked infiltrate. So he decided that he wanted to go first. I was going to effectively change my order because my Dakka boy was concealed, but my missile boy wasn't. My missile boy was concealed as well. So I could either do double dynamite because my Breacher was engaged, but he was behind a heavy wall. And that was pretty much the opening. So he activated a guy, moved up to the point, and then claimed it. No, he didn't claim it, sorry. He moved up to the point with one of his Grey Knights. And then I immediately noticed that his Grey Knight behind the red barrier in the middle was actually just over an inch. And I was like, oh, he must have done that by accident, but he's already moved and stuff. So at the start of my activation, quickly measured it. It was like 1.5 inches out. So even though he was concealed, he wasn't actually safe. So I used infiltrate immediately to flip my Dakka boy into engage. I'd obviously played Dakka, and I rolled 2 crits and 3 hits because I rerolled everything because, I didn't move. Well, yeah, anyway. So he managed to save 2 because he rolled AP1, but he'd already taken 2 wounds from Splash, and because he'd only saved 2, he only saved 1. So I did 4, 8, I did 18 damage, and he died. He died a lot, and that was his guy with silver bolt ammo, so Cybolt ammunition, so it was doing 4/5 on a Stormbolter. So immediately that guy was just dead. I'm pretty sure I traded my Dakka boy for that, but I think it was worth it. So then I moved him up to the terrain down below. And then effectively he moved his guys kind of in the middle. And then he had 1 guy move up. But what he didn't realize, he'd left 2 guys within white of each other. So then I immediately given the Dakka boy, the Breacher boy +1 APL. And did I do that? Yeah, so then he dashed down into the middle. And because he'd moved 2 Grey Knights into the middle where that other Grey Knight was, he turned 1 and basically shot my missile boy to death because shot him once and overwatched him with relentless and no cover, so he just died. And then I dynamited him. So I knocked his leader down to 2 wounds because I rolled a crit. And then I'm pretty sure I almost killed the guy as well behind. And then he was like, oh my gosh, dynamite. And I was like, yeah. But then at the end of turning point 2, at the end of turning point 1, we basically scored 1 each for the primaries. And then turning point 2, I think he had forgotten about my second dynamite. Because for turning point 1, I'd moved my Dakka boy into the top of the building. So because there was still, he had moved free, so he'd moved his third guy into the middle because he was trying to get to this middle point for central control. So he had 3 Grey Knights within 2 inches of each other. So I won priority, and I was like, no, he won priority, shot up my Breacha boy, immediately killed him. I was like, okay. And then he stayed where he was. And he didn't realize. So what I did, I was like, I'm going to Dakka dash because my Dakka boy only had 2 APL. So he did Dakka dash, so he dashed, and then he threw his grenade and effectively killed them all. There was 1 Grey Knight left on 2 wounds. And then I just charged him with my comms and punched him in the face. So yeah, by turn 2, we'd accidentally wiped him out. And we for some reason, we felt it was like turning point 3. And I looked at my door numbers and I was like, nope, it's turning point 2 and I've somehow wiped you out. And he was like, yeah, I mean, I'm dead. And it was just like, it wasn't like, oh, damn. I wasn't sorry about it. It was just kind of like, yeah, I kind of pushed too far forward because he'd forgotten about the second dynamite. So yeah, and then because I was running infiltration, because it was 6 inches, because basically I was running upload viral code, interloper, and it was the shock tactics. So kill someone turning point 1 and then control more objectives turning point 2. So obviously I managed to kill a Grey Knight turning point 1. Turning point 2, I held more objectives. And then also in turning point 3, I was in his board. So I literally just, used upload viral code twice. My Grot had claimed his objectives. And then turn 4, my Grot, he was not for this world. He left for another mission. So I scored maximum points on that mission. So yeah, it was like literally turn 2 wipeout. I think if we were playing Master of the Terminals, I probably might have maybe lost. I don't think I would have done as well against Grey Knights in that position. But yeah, it was just literally the first dynamite did its work and then the second dynamite swung the game. But I think it's because my opponent forgot about the second dynamite because I had no extra AP on my guys. I think he forgot about the Dakka dash thing. So it was like, whoa. But I think his biggest mistake was just the guy behind the red barricade that he accidentally forgot was an inch out. And he's like, that's my fault. I should have pre-measured. Because yeah, if I caught that before when we were deploying, I would have said like, oh, dude, he's a bit too far out. But I only noticed at the start of the game after he moved his stuff. And then interestingly, he told me in another game, the same thing happened to him against his opponent. So he basically said, I'm afraid you've done what I did turn 1. But it was a really cool game. It was just, yeah, as I said, I didn't expect to wipe out the Grey Knights by end of turning point 2. And then he got a perfect score. So I think it was, unfortunately, 18-1 to me. So I was like, whew. And then I checked the leaderboard. And yeah, at the end of round 1, I was the only one who maxed out everything for that mission. So I was like, wow, I expected more people to max out everything. Like I think one or two other players maxed out the primary, but I was the only one to max out TAC Ops. So I was like, oh wow, interesting. So next we go on to round 2, not turning point 2. So once again, I'm on Octarius, home field advantage for my narrative power. And I was against the Warp Coven. This was a kill team I didn't want to face. I had read up on it via the, I have the White Dwarfs, so I was reading up on them. The most thing I was concerned about was their movement spell, because originally I thought it removed white from your movement as well, not just your charge and dash. And then my friend was like, no, John, you've misread it. It's just charges and dashes. But still, that's a huge threat. So I was expecting my opponent to, Dale. So he was ranked 2nd at this point. So last tournament, it was random pairings within your bracket. But I think for this tournament, they were doing highest versus highest. So he was second, I was first. So I think we just ran into each other. That's how they were doing it. Because he'd scored maxed out his primary, but only scored 4 tac ops in his last game, so he was 2 points behind me. And then we were playing Master of the Terminals, which was super rough. Just because I don't like this mission at all, as I've previously said. So once again, I went with the same kill team and same equipment on everyone. But I had planned for this mission, partly because of like my friend Charles's advice. But I had plans. You can probably see it on the image, but I will explain. But yeah, for the Warp Coven, I had no idea. So when I was playing against Elliot and his commandos, what I stupidly did was just like nod and go, yeah, cool, they can order that. But this time I made sure to ask what my opponent had all the time. Like he was always telling me, which was really good. He's really clear about everything. And I was just making sure I wasn't afraid just to ask what all his stuff did, even if it was just asking again. And obviously I was apologizing. I was like, I'm going to ask a lot of the same questions all over again. He's like, don't worry, it's fine. You know, it's a new kill team. So he was really cool about that, just telling me everything, because I'm always open with what I can do as well. So I was just making sure I was fully familiarized, but I was effectively learning the matchup as I played. So I expected him to take all the 3 sorcerers and just rubrics, but he only took 2 sorcerers and then all Zangors, and I had no idea why. Then he had like, the thing is he had crazy psychic powers. So he had like Flux Blast, which is a blast weapon. Then he had an Indirect Blast, which is only Blast Black, so 1-inch blast, but can fire indirect. Now it is only 4 dice with 2 damage, but the problem is it stops me bunching up, and because he can just shoot my guys, obviously it exposes Sorcerer doing it, but I didn't want to have like my Comms boy injured or my Dakka boy injured with the dynamite. I needed to keep my guys fresh until they got into combat. So I had to space out heavily. And the other thing I'll use, let me just get up my tac ops. So yeah, this all comes down to, once again, Charles. So thank you, Charles, and my opponents probably hate you for this. Because we were planning out this mission so much, because obviously we'd played it a lot, there's a stratagem called Sneaky Git. So it's a tactical ploy, but it has an odd timing. So you use this tactical ploy in the setup operative step of the mission sequence. Select one friendly commando operative excluding the bomb squig that can be set up with a conceal order anywhere on the battlefield that was in black of heavy terrain and more than red from enemy operatives in the drop zone. Now, there is a rule saying you can only play tactical ploys once per turning point, but this stratagem occurs outside of the turning points during setup. So you get 2 CP at this point, because you get your extra CP when the start of the turning point. So I basically spent 2 CP to put my normal boy up at the top, just above objective 3, where that terrain was, because he was concealed. And then I put my Slasha boy next to objective 4, because you can see his Zangor banner, because I expected him to dash and then move and dash onto 4 and claim that. Because my plan was turn 1, I am going to get 3 victory points and you're going to get none, and then I'm just going to deny you as much as possible, get that early lead, and then maximize my tac ops, because my tac ops were blow up, and then what do you call it? It was blow up, shock tactics, and then interlope with the Grot. He had interestingly picked his tac op, which was one he could switch, and I forgot the other one, but then the other one was like a Zinch one where I had to nominate an objective and an operative, and if he killed the operative and he controlled the objective at any point, he got 1 VP for each. So I nominated objective 2, and then I nominated the Grot, because I was never going to let him get that Grot, but we'll go on to that. So yeah, I burnt my 2 CP to get there. I picked, obviously, Infiltrate, so I would, because he picked Infiltrate as well, so I got priority, so I made sure I was going first, but it did mean I only had 1 CP going in to the going into, what do you call it, turning point 1, and I think I didn't burn it. I wanted to do Dakka, but I was like, I need to hold it for it's just a scratch. So I immediately started turning point 1. I was like, okay, I'm contesting objective 4, probably should have deployed onto objective 4, but I was just being too cagey for my own good. So I moved the Dakka boy down, moved the normal boy down, immediately claimed objective 3, because as you can see, objective 1 is off, then objective 2 is my one, which will be off, and then 3 and 4. So turn 1, objective 1 was off. So he charged my boy, and I was like, he charged him with this heavy hitter. So he's like, oh, this is re-rolling Relentless. No, it was a guy with it was Relentless Zangor. So it's like, it does 4/5 damage, and he rolled like crit, and a hit. And I was like, cool, you only have 8 wounds, right? He's like, yeah. So then I rolled 3 hits. I rolled a crit and 2 hits. So he critted me. And I was like, cool, I'll parry your hit. And he was like, cool, I'll crit you. And I went, it's just a scratch. And he was like, what? And then I killed him. So immediately I was like, cool, I've just scored 1 VP for shock tactics. Excellent. Then I just immediately dashed onto 4 and claimed that. So I was already 2 up. Then he charged another Zangor into my Slasher boy. And then he basically whiffed. And my Slasher boy went, oh, and then hacked him down. And then he got charged again. And so basically I managed to kill 2 Zangors. Then another Zangor charged my Slasher boy, who also, my normal boy up top. He did kill him, but he took 4 damage in return. So he was half wounded already. And then he started swarming objective 3 to make sure he got that for turning point 2. And then basically I stupidly to try and stall him out, because I forgot he outnumbered me, I shot my Grot up onto the bottom right terrain piece and then dashed for no reason. Partly because I forgot as I said at this point, I didn't know the Grot always had the conceal rule. And he advanced up and basically claimed that point. Turning point 2, I was in a bad position because I was like, for shock tactics, I need to control more objectives. But I think my opponent had misread the mission. He was like, I just have to claim the points and I can move off them. He's like, yeah. I was like, no, that's completely true. The moment you claim them, I can't claim them back. So you don't need to stay once you've claimed them. You can move them off if you want. So that's what he did. But in the start of turning point 2, I lost priority. So I was like, crap, because there's a Zangor banner basically within charge range of my Kommando Grot, I have 2 options. I win priority and immediately interlope him away, or I spend my only CP for Shush, which you only play once per game, and everyone does a free dash action. So I had to spend 1 CP to dash away with my Grot effectively. No one else could really dash anywhere. And I wasted that. But obviously I'd done the command point trick. I'd given 1 command point, 1 AP to the Breacha boy, so the Breacha boy was already on free APL. But I dashed back, and then effectively, turning point 2, he got objective 3, then moved off of it because he wanted to contest mine. I captured my 2 with my missile boy in my last activation because he had no one to shoot. I managed to kill because my sniper boy shot at his sorcerer, and I believe he just killed him because he rolled a ton of crits. Because he just rolled 4 crits, doing 4 more wounds and then shot him to death. And then, oh no, he moved his sorcerer up, yeah. So basically he rushed 4, but I had already contested it, then claimed it. And because I had enough guys in the middle, I effectively killed 1 sorcerer and killed all the Zangor there. And he managed to get onto 1, but I effectively, because he tried to charge block me, but what I did was capture 4, gave 1 APL to my Burna, then my Burna murdered the Zangor who had charged both him and my comms boy. Then he shot the Zangor on 1, leaving it with 1 wound. And then, I controlled that area. My Dakka boy dashed down. I popped my grenade up top. I managed to only target the other sorcerer, but I knocked him down to 4 wounds. So he was like, oh my gosh. But he'd moved away from the points. So at the end of turning point 2, I noticed what I could do. I had the Grot Squig left, and I could hook shot onto 3, because for shock tactics, I just had to control more objectives. And at this point, I was controlling 4, he was controlling 1. If I control 2 and he doesn't move to contest, I control more objectives. He had managed to claim 2 to my 1, but he had moved off of them, and he'd forgotten about shock tactics. So what I did, I just messed around with the Grot. The Dakka boy moved and dashed down to basically knock the banner, because there's only 1 Zangor left, knocked him down to 2 wounds. He charged my Dakka boy, did 3 damage, and then died from his fists. So I had saved that bottom right flank. There was nothing contesting that. So I had freedom. So then I just moved my Grot around. And at the end of turning point 2, because I controlled more objectives, I maxed out shock tactics. So all I had left was blow it up, which was his terrain piece closest to 1. And then, then I just had interlope. So what happened was a very cagey match, because I was basically living on It's Just a Scratch for turning points 3 and 4. Not till it didn't win me the game, but it basically stalled him out. So it took him a while to clear through my Breacha boy because he was just 10 wounds and he was hitting really hard. My Rokkit boy just stood on 2. He couldn't charge anyone, but he was just blocking 2. So he got charged by his angle and survived with It's Just a Scratch. And then my Dakka boy, no, he didn't. I didn't use It's Just a Scratch in turning point 3 because I had to use my 1 CP for something really important. So turning point 3, I immediately moved and then Dakka dashed and shot against the Zangor on 1 wound. So I rolled 3 hits, and then my opponent rolled 3 saves because we rolled them at the same time. And I was like, crap, he's rolled 3 5-ups, he's in the open. I foolishly shot too early, so I was literally an inch out of unload shells round. So I was like, I have to use this CP now. If I kill the guy on 1, I get 4. He can't get 1. He'll get 3. And then I like contest off 2. Like 3 is unclaimable. And rerolled the CP. It felt like the longest roll ever because that dice just rolled. Time slowed down for me and I rolled a 4. So I got 4 successes, so that guy died. And the important thing was, so he couldn't claim 1. I had claimed 4. 2 was contested, 3 was off. So I only got 1 from the primary. But my Dakka boy was now within 3 of that stuff I needed to blow up. And I baited out by putting the Grot behind the heavy piece. So then in turning point 4, I dashed over to 1 with the Burna boy and claimed it. Then he did Vantage twice because he uses each thing because his sorcerer had a mutation where he could fly. Well, he had ability to fly and he had a mutation where he does action points for action missions for less, 1 less AP. So he moved up and did Vantage. And then he was like, cool, I'm going to move down and shoot your Grot. He wasn't aware that my Grot was behind heavy terrain. So Vantage doesn't work against stuff on heavy. But anyway, I completely forgot that my Grot just ignores Vantage anyway. So he realized he couldn't do, so he just shot someone and didn't do much. I used It's Just a Scratch to save my guy on 1. And then what I immediately did was dashed to the terrain piece with my Dakka boy and just blew it up. So I didn't use his dynamite all game, but he scored me 2 VP. And then I just mopped up. He claimed objective 2, but I claimed 1. He couldn't claim 3 because there was no one within range because he'd moved his sorcerer away too far and his sorcerer was injured. So he'd forgotten about that. And then I interloped. So at the end of the game, it finished 13-7 to me. He had scored 4 tac ops. I'd scored 6. On the primary, I'd scored 7 and he scored 3. So it was super tough. Like I think he said he accidentally made miscalculation with his tac ops. And I'd like done a good job of denying that. But I was just like, because I was learning the matchup as I played. Like literally, I was just not sure what was happening. I was just like, you can do all this stuff. I couldn't bunch up because of your spells. You couldn't bunch up because of my grenades. And yeah, in this mission, my plan was to just get ahead enough on the primaries and then focus on my tac ops, which is what I did. Because once I was in the winning position on my primaries, I was just like, screw the primaries. I'm just going to max out my tac ops. But yeah, that was super tough. Like Dale was an amazing opponent. And it was just like, we were both spent after that. So then so at the end of round 2, I was still ranked first. I was also the only person who had still maxed out my tac ops. And then Charles was like to me, you know, John, if you win your final round and you max out even if you just score 5 tac ops, the guy behind you is 2 tac op points behind you. So if you win and score 5 tac ops, you've won the tournament. And I was like, thank you. Also, thank you for the pressure. That's fine. That's fine. So yeah, game 3, super tense. Once again, I was paired against the second highest ranked opponent, I think, in the tournament, which was Zinch Warpcoven again. And it was on table 1 again. So the same board, but this time we're playing escalating hostilities. So this mission I actually really like. It's a 6 inches deployment on lengthways, and you have 6 objectives. At the start of the Turning Point 2's initiative step, both players remove 1 objective from their territory, well, closest to their territory, and then the other. And when there is only 2 objectives left in the center, each one is worth 2. So I was like, okay, at least I've played Zinch, so I have an idea of what's going on. But I was playing against a lovely guy called Alan, and You know, he's with his wife. It was really not. Everyone I played was so nice. It was really nice. I'll show you some more pictures later. But this was interesting. He was using Warp Coven, but completely different to my last opponent. Whereas my last opponent was 2 sorcerers and Zangors, this guy was 3 sorcerers and all rubrics. Because it was weird, like, the guy I played was like, oh, rubrics aren't that good because I can't double shoot, so your Zangors are better, and you only really need 2 sorcerers, but this guy was like, I'm going to use all my sorcerers, and like, I just like my gunners. And I was just like, it was effectively playing a different kill team, because both compositions play very differently. So once again, I had to learn the matchup again, but my opponent was really cool. Once again, he was happy to walk through my stuff. I was walking through my stuff. Just very clear. I went with exactly the same kill team loadout. I thought about the bomb squig, but there was no way. So he actually chose to make me the defender. So he chose the attacker. So he chose the right-sided deployment because he put his sorcerer with flux bomb and his gunner, which is that guy's 6 dice, AP1, fusillade. It's ridiculous. 3/4. So he was on that point. So I was very limited in what I could do. I couldn't bunch up because he also had the flux bot. He had the indirect blast thing. So I spaced out my 2 guys. We both picked infiltrate. And I effectively could not leave anyone in the middle where I wanted to because the chain gun would just gun him down, and so would the sorcerer. So I had to hide behind my 2 pieces of heavy. So up top, I had my sniper boy and missile boy, both would conceal. I had my breacher boy would engage with the dynamite. Then I had a boy. Then I have my knob, which you can see sticking out non-sexually. And then behind all the heavy, I have everyone else and the Grot at the back. So what I did was, it was really cautious. So he had no one to shoot at. So he advanced his sorcerer up into the middle because he was playing security. He had central control. And then he advanced another guy but within 2 behind that. And then he moved his guys up because it's 1 AP to claim and then move up. So we both claimed our objectives and moved up. And because he had no one to shoot with, he passed with his gunner, and then he had this melee sorcerer down bottom with fly who could move 9 inches with the charge. So he waited for me to bring my guy up. So what I did, I moved the Slasher boy above 5, and I moved my Burna boy down at the bottom to bait out a charge. So then he moved his guy 9 inches away from me. Well, 9.5. So he could charge me, I couldn't charge him. But the key thing, he had moved his sorcerer off the point down, and he had changed his other sorcerer to engage. No, he didn't change his other. Yeah, he did change. No, he didn't change another sorcerer to engage. Sorry. So he had a sorcerer in the middle, and then a normal rubric 2 inches, well, 1 white behind. So I immediately +1 APL on the Breacher boy. Breacher boy ran. Oh no, I didn't. I did. Comms boy did +1 APL to the Dakka boy. Dakka boy did a move, then Dakka dashed. So he managed to because he managed to keep out of range of the Breacher boy, but he had forgotten about the Dakka boy. So I'd obviously told him what I could do with the Dakka boy, but he'd just forgotten. So the Dakka boy moved 6, dashed 1 because he had played his spell to reduce all my movement, my charges and dashes by 1 white. So I managed to just get within range of my Dakka dash, and I hit his sorcerer with Dakka, and knocked him down to 4 wounds, and I knocked down the rubric behind him down to 7. And then I unloaded my Dakka guy into a sorcerer and rolled 2 crits. So did 4 mortal wounds and immediately killed him. And once again scored shock tactics. Because for this mission, I took shock tactics again. And then I took interlope, obviously on my Grot. But also took, what's it called? It was sabotage. So the only 2 terrain pieces I could sabotage were his ones on the top and the bottom corner. So that was going to be hard. But immediately I'd scored 1 for shock tactics. And yeah, I'd killed a sorcerer, heavily wounded a rubric. Turning point 2 was rougher. He took the charge, and because of it's just a scratch, I needed my Burna boy to die, but do enough damage. So I rolled a crit and 2 hits, and he rolled 2 crits and he rolled 4 crits. So, you know, he rolled 5 crits with his melee sorcerer. So my Burna boy was dead, no matter what. So I hit him for a crit. He hit me for a crit. I hit him for a crit. Then he hit me for a crit. I did it's just a scratch, and I hit him for 4. So I knocked him down by 9 wounds. Then he killed me. Then I countercharged with my Slasher boy and immediately wiped out another melee sorcerer. His other sorcerer moved up a bit. This time I had to kill his, I had to kill his chain gun, because the chain gun was just, my Nob had moved out at the end of turning point 1, and his guy shot him and knocked him down to 1 wound. So I was like, oh my gosh, because he did 12 damage and I had 13 wounds. So I was like, my Nob is bleeding out. So I did a combination of Rocket Boy, knocking that sorcerer, knocking down the gunner down to 5 wounds, and then he dashed underneath, moved underneath, and then I sniped and managed to just kill him. Because he was like, oh, yeah, I have a 2-up save because your damage is 2. And I was like, oh. But then I rolled 2 crits and 2 hits. So he was like, what was it? I did crits basically. So I did 3 crits and 2 hits. So basically, because of the crits, knocked him down to 1 wound. He passed 3 saves, 2 were crits, and then effectively took the damage and died. So I managed to eliminate that threat. And then what I did at the end of this turn, so my plan was to originally give the Grot +1 APL, but I needed to control more points for shock tactics because I'd gotten rid of objective 3. He had gotten rid of his objective up top as well. So he had his one down bottom right. And so I got rid of, 3. He got rid of, we both got rid of our top objective. So it was just our bottom ones left. So he controlled his bottom right. He didn't control 2. And he didn't contest it because his rubrics didn't have the movement because they can only move 1 red, so 6 inches, so they couldn't reach objective 2 to contest, and he went more for central control. So I let him get central control. I did throw a dynamite. It just wounded everyone, didn't kill anyone. The first one did the most damage, but I suicided my Nob onto 2. But before I did that, I moved my boy up onto the top of the top left terrain piece. So then I activated him before I activated my Nob because I was like, okay, I'm in a winning position, but I need to max out my tac ops. So Interloper is fine, but I need to max out Sabotage. So I realized I could do it. So the way I did it, I had to do it before my Nob died. So I moved and activated my Breacha boy, my normal boy first, so he's behind the scramble terrain. Then I activated my Nob to move him onto 1 as my last activation, and he gave +1 APL to the Breacha boy. And then I moved my comm around to objective 1. So he was controlling it because he can do mission actions for free. But I made sure the Grot was exactly 1 red away from him, so 6 inches. So then at the start of turning point 3, so this was important because I maxed out shock tactics because before I was only controlling 1. And he was controlling 1, so now I was controlling 3 to his 1. So I got 3 on the primary, and then I maxed out shock tactics. So that was the important thing. Shock tactics were maxed out. And then he won priority, so I immediately killed my Nob, because, you have to kill the Nob. I didn't Dakka dash down with, I didn't dash down with the Rocket Boy, because he, once again, I Dakka, and my Rocket Boy murdered his sorcerer. And then once I eliminated that sorcerer, I gave +1 APL to the Grot because I checked Sabotage, and I remember Sabotage doesn't have the limit of you can only do this once per turning point. So with Sabotage, you can do Sabotage in 1 turn. You just have to have the APL and the ability to reach it. So my boy moved up to the terrain piece up top with 3 APL because I'd given him +1 APL after he'd activated. So when he activated at turning point 3, he had 3 action points. So he moved within black of that terrain piece, blew it up for 2 VP. Then next, I hookshot the Grot from the barricade closest to the middle all the way to that terrain piece at back because he could see it. Then he blew it up, and I had scored that. And he only had 2 rubrics left in the middle. So I'd let him get 1 central control, and once again, I'd swarm the middle. So no, he had moved on to 2, sorry. So we had both scored 2 points for holding 1 objective each. And then I won priority, immediately charge locked his, rubrics. Slasher boy killed 1, and the other one punched back and then died to the Slasher boy. So then I interloped and maxed out on everything. So at the end of turning point 4, I was on 17. I have 17 points because I got 11 from the primary and I've got 6 from my tag ops. So I had an inkling because they'd hidden the scores, but it was a really good game. I would say it was like super enjoyable. Alan and his like wife were so much fun. Like they were just, it was really nice. We were all really clear. We weren't hiding anything. It was a lot of banter. It was like all my games were really good, but this one was so fun. Like let me show you this. There's another really cool image. Like their mascots on the table. So, you know, I forgot to ask what the mascots' names, but I like to call them Mr. Bunny and Mr. Penguin. So you've got my knob in between Mr. Bunny and Mr. Penguin. So phrasing. But no, it was really sweet. They're really nice. And they were really good players. Like Alan was completely underselling himself. He was like, you know, I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. I don't know what I'm doing. But I was like, you're the second ranked player outside of me going into this. So you were doing amazingly well. And yeah, we turned out like he'd played Charles before at previous events, and he was going like he comes down to our London event, so it was really cool, but that was really fun. And yeah, so we went on to, you know, they kept the scores hidden. We just don't know what happened. It was a lot of suspense. I mean, I might have had an inkling of what happened, but it's very, I don't know, you just can't think how these, you can't predict where the scores are going to go, you know. It's really difficult, but at the end, so the interesting thing, top four, because there was only 4 undefeated, all commandos. Obviously I came first. I'm really happy I came first. Like it was really emotional for me. I didn't show it too much, but I've always wanted to win something at Warhammer World. Even at Underworlds, I've been unable to win a tournament at Warhammer World. We have a running trope with me and my friends. The most things we've won at Warhammer World with the pub quiz, but back when they did pub quizzes, but like we run 3 pub quizzes in a row. So that was our thing. But I've got finally got a nice trophy because I finished on the highest victory points. I was the only one to score 6 tac ops every game, so I maxed out my tac ops, so I was on 18. And I was the only one, I had the tied for highest strength of schedule, because I realized I just played the best players each round effectively. And the people I'd beaten went on to do really well. So I think the guy I played in round 2, I think he finished 6th or something, because, no, 8th. He was top 8, and then Alan, who I just played, finished 10th. It was something like that. No, 6th and 10th. Yeah, there we go. So they did really well. And yeah, my plan of just scoring all my tac ops worked. As I said, commandos were the only unbeaten ones. They all got top 4. But I was speaking to them, so I know how the other 2 went. So one played into, I can't remember what it was. It wasn't a mirror. So the guy who came second played with his commandos and managed to just win. And then there was commandos versus infiltrators, and they basically only won by 1 point because it came down to a dice roll. Because like Nick Baton was playing infiltrators out of his mind. He was just like, I'm just playing the mission, John. Just playing the mission, like as you should. And he was winning with infiltrators. I think he finished 10th, no, 11th or something, 9th or something. If he won, I think he would have finished 3rd. So he was doing crazy work with his infiltrators, but they lost just due to a dice roll. So commandos did come 1 to 4. They only unbeaten. But when I was speaking to the commando players, some of them were like, they weren't using the stuff I was doing. They weren't maxing out their tac ops. They were trying to, but they were doing interesting stuff like putting dynamite on the knob. And I get that, kinda, but my knob is like one of my key pieces because I use him as the APL buff. So I was keeping him alive for that. He was very much, because if he charges something, he's doing 5/6 damage because he hits on 2s. I don't like the power claw because it's with 4 attacks hitting on 3s. I just go with the 2s. And yeah, everything worked weirdly. As I said, I had really tough games. Like game 1 was tough. I was just like, didn't expect to wipe out my opponent by turn 2. Game 2 was, really, really tough. I won that by the skin of my teeth. And then game 3, even though I did wipe out my opponent, it was like I had to gain the momentum by turn 2. So I was just like, I managed just to edge out in the right cases. But as I said, my main focus was maxing out my tac ops because that was my weakest priority and my weakest element of my game and something I wanted to max out. And I did. So I got this lovely trophy. So, I feel content It's weird. I didn't expect to win something for Kill Team so soon because I've only been playing it now for like 2.5 months. And as I said, I've only been playing Commandos properly for 8 days, 9 days as of today. So, but it was like all of my experience. Like I learned a lot playing my Tyranids because of my positional skill. And Charles, I was up there with Charles. He did really well as again. I'm like, because I'm going to do this will either come up before or after my podcast explaining our event. Spoilers. He came fifth. He was the top of the pack for people on 2 wins because he got 2 wins on a draw. He tied Custodes, so it was like you saved and ruined the event because as a TO you hate when people draw. Draws ruin the event, but he druid Custodes, so he stopped Custodes being undefeated. And so we were like, you've saved the event, but you've ruined it at the same time. But he came 5th, so he was just using normal Forge Worlds. He went from 6th to 5th because he did 6th last time. Now he's 5th this time. But oh my gosh, I was like, yes, yeah, it's like really cool. I'm really happy I won that. And I said I had really fun games. My goal wasn't to win. It was just max out my attack ops and make sure I have fun time. And all my opponents were really cool. Everyone was really clear. It was just amazing. And yeah. So for my event summary, once again, gold standard for Kill Team. I can't see an event topping Games Workshop run event, especially for Warhammer World and Kill Team. Terrain, perfect. I know some people were a bit upset with the deployment, and I can kind of see that, but I think it's more of the missions. I liked, after round 1, they changed the table layouts. Would have liked to play on Vertigus once, but, you know, Octarius home advantage, it's fine. And yeah, the only really big thing that I already mentioned, it was only 3 rounds at 35 quid. If it was, you know, 4 rounds or it was like slightly cheaper, that was my only criticism of the event. Otherwise, it was really good. I like the lanyard. Oh, MVPs. I'll show you the picture now. Praise be to the water fountain. Oh, like, firstly, at events, you know, you order stuff from Bugman's Bar, but you're usually like, oh, can I have some tap water as well to stay hydrated? But, you know, having a cold and, well, normal temperature water fountain anyone can use takes a drain away from the bar staff and allowed me to stay hydrated, because when I last played at Warhammer World, I didn't stay hydrated enough and had a terrible headache. So this time I was constantly drinking from like water tower Chan. Like, it was like so cool. He was the MVP. But my real MVP was the Grot, just because what I was using him was like to waste activations, scoring tac ops, but mainly to interlope, but he was just an annoying threat my opponent had to keep in mind. And then outside of that, MVPs after the Grot would either be the APL modifier guys, so the comms guy and the knob, or the missile boy, because the missile boy was just, I used him as denial, area denial, because like people go, oh my gosh, I need to stay away from him. So he, like, not only does he draw firepower, but he's just a massive threat and like a distraction piece or distraction Carnifex. But yeah, that everything went as planned, which is weird because normally things don't go as planned for me. So Commando tactics all the way. I know people are saying like Commandos are broken, and Commandos did do really well at this event. But the interesting thing, there was SoCal Open, which was won by Admech. I don't think Commandos did well in that. And then there was a Spanish tournament with 26 players where Custodes came first and second. And then there was another tournament with 13 players where Harlequins topped. So, you know, for this tournament, obviously looks bad, you know, from just the top 4. But so far the spread's pretty good. There are some things that may need tweaking, like probably the Dakka dash. I think if that should probably only be with the Dakka gun and not just a shoot action, because as I said, you could Dakka dash with the grenade, well, stick bomb or dynamite. And maybe you could cap dynamite to once or give it heavy just to stop you being able to do that massive threat. But the thing that makes Commando so strong is that they're all 10 wounds, basically. It's just a scratch and they just have tons of flexibility. If you know how to play them and you can plan everything out and you can stick to that plan and adapt, you can you do really well with them. Because like my proudest moment in the tournament was in round 3, where I realized I could sabotage both terrain pieces at once. So as I said, that's why I set up the boy. I set up the boy first, and then I realized I can do it with the Grot as well because it was turning point 3, so I had to do it before he interloped. So I was like, maxed out, wiped him out turn 3, maxed out my blow arps, and then interloped away. So I was really proud about that because I was learning as I was playing. So because I tried to prep as much as I could. And yeah, it's just, I hope it shows that if you put in practice, it works. Because I have played a lot, but I identified from my previous tournaments, the weakest thing was my tac ops. So I focused on experimenting with all the tac ops I could play with my kill team. And on the day, I just made sure I focused on my tac ops 100%. Because I think for other events, tac ops are the other decider. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I had a great time at the event. Food was good. Really clear. The lanyard thing was amazing because, as I said, if I just wanted to know when the next round was, just flip my lanyard around. Super helpful, clearly organized. Staff were great. No issues. Rulings were nice and clear. Everyone seemed to have a really fun time. Oh, I forgot the most important thing. The round time shout-outs. This was so crucial. So what they did, instead of just telling you what time you've got, they said, okay, and it's now been 15 minutes, so you should be starting turning point 1. It has now been another 20 minutes, you should be finished turning point 1, etc., etc. That really helped, because the start of game 1, I realized I was taking too long deploying, so when they did that, I was like, oh crap, I need to speed up deploying. So I deployed like half my kill team, and then I did the rest in a minute. And then that calling the time out at different steps of the game, they said it's not a law, but it's more like a reminder to nudge you, like, oh, come on, you need to get going. That was probably the biggest change because, slow playing last time with me. But that really helped. And as someone who was on top of my time, having the reminder of what point in the game I was in was really cool. Because even though I had my phone on a timer at the side and they have a big clock, the fact they were reminding me, I was like, oh yeah, oh crap, I wasn't paying attention to the clock. Let's go on to this. And I was like, because I know Steve came up with that. And his team, that was probably the biggest thing. Because even me at tournaments, when I TO them, I have a tendency to forget to call out the round timing. So I think that was the best change. But as I said, Warhammer World does the best events for Kill Team in my experience. If you can go to a Kill Team event at Warhammer World, I'd highly recommend it. I don't know when the next one is. I think it'll be Q1 next year. But hopefully, as long as things get better, they can have more people. We could potentially have 60 to 80 players for a one-day tournament, or it might be a two-dayer, something like that. But if you go to Warhammer World, you will not have a bad time. They were giving trophies for best painted, most sporting player. So there's always prizes up for grabs, and everyone had a really good time. And what was really cool, people told me, based off of my last review, they'd come to the event and they had a really good time. So yeah, I'm not lying when you say you will have a good time, and it's really smoothly run, no issues. That's pretty much it. But yeah, before I go, please remember to like and subscribe, as well as comment about what you thought of this video and, well, my progress as a whole. I may do an actual proper Tactica on the Ork Commandos if people want. I kind of did it here, but I can go in more in depth if people want. It's just, if people want, let me know. I kind of feel a bit bad talking about, because I've only just won one tournament. Yeah, it was 36 players, but as I said, I've only been properly playing Commandos for 9 days now. So yeah, if you want to, let me know and I'd be happy to. But it's just something, because I feel I kind of need, I don't really need to play them more, but I can't, you don't want to be like kind of one and done. What I'm tempted to play next is probably either Warp Coven, the Chow Nath kill teams, or what do you call them? The Veteran Guardsmen. Because they weren't at this event, but the problem with the Veteran Guardsmen is you basically need 2 sprues. So you need one box and another box, whereas the Commandos, you can just function with one box and you're fine. I had some tech with the Bomb Squig that I didn't talk about, but that was only against Custodies, because you can basically, if they're trying to space out from the Dynamites, you can punish them with the Bomb Squig, because the Bomb Squig blows up. You measure 1 white from the Bomb Squig, so if they're spaced up from the Dynamites but not spaced up enough, you can still get everyone with the Bomb Squig. But stuff like that. I do think the Veteran Guardsmen are really good. I think they can deal with the Commandos, but it takes work. And the only problem is, you have to buy another box, whereas the Commandos, I can just play out of one box. But I'm really tempted by Warp Coven. They are really strong, but also we've got the Chownoff stuff coming up. And there is a tournament coming up in Bad Moon next month, which I may go to. But as I said, if infection stuff gets worse, I may just not. I've already paid for my ticket, but I'll see, because I don't want to send the wrong message to people, even though, you know, I take precautions and everything. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Back on Kill Team, having a really good time. I'm so happy my practice paid off. Thank you to Charles and Itan most of all. They had to endure playing against me and like listening to, like, we rambled with each other. We did like a ton of theory crafting, and it all paid off for us. Sadly, Itan couldn't make it this time, but hopefully he'll make it to another one. But yeah, thank you to those guys, because if it was without them, I would not have done well at all. Because once again, they gave me all the tools I needed to win, like, theory-wise. So, you know, and once again, if you can take anything from this video, it's just practice and friends, as well as just, like, reading out in the community. Because, yeah, like, I learned stuff from the community and from my friends, and improved from what I learned on from before at previous tournaments. So, yeah, until next time, keep rolling crits, even in the new mysterious space of Chalnath.